Welcome to our members of the public. Nice to see you. My name is Pauline Grove-Jones. I'm the chair of this development committee. If you've not attended one of these meetings before, I'm going to just run through the general introductions. The officers who provide the information and the reports are sitting either side of me, and I'd like them to introduce themselves, starting with Jeff.
Good morning, my name is Jeff Lyon. I'm the Development Manager at Northrops.
Good morning, I'm Alice Walker, I'm Planning Officer.
I'm Lauren Gregory, Democratic Services Officer.
Joseph Barrow, Senior Planning Officer.
Matthew Atwell, Household Planning Assistant.
Isabel McManus, Trainee Planning Officer.
Mark Burns, Senior Planning Officer.
Thank you very much. And
Fiona Croxton, Solicitor to the Council.
thank you. Now, I'm just going to run through a little bit of housekeeping. The fire alarm, if it goes off, it's for real. So please follow the officers. We have exits here and 2 over here. Don't use the lift. Go down the stairs. There are stairs outside here, and assemble in the front or of the building or behind. And if you have a mobile phone, I'm looking at you, Nigel. Please switch them off completely or turn them to silent. If we go on past 11 or towards 11, we could have a 10-minute break for coffee and comfort break. And also the facilities are available just outside here in the foyer. Thank you. I'm now going to ask Lauren to give me apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Holliday and Councillor Varley.
Substitutes?
There are no substitutes on this occasion.
It's a shame. I think it's the time of the year, actually. Minutes for the last meeting. To approve the minutes for the 23rd of February. Have you all been through them? Any problems? Yes, Nigel.
First of all, my learned colleague over there had his hand up first.
Sorry.
I don't jump queue, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you, Nigel. On page 1 under minute 114, Chairman, I declared an interest as being a member of the Caravan and Motorhome Club.
Right, thank you.
Can you clarify, please? Thank you.
Nigel.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm asking for some advice. I have a query on the major item on our minutes from the last meeting. Don't quite know where to put it in because it will require some answers. It's regarding the Hopkins home development. So could I please have some advice whether I can bring it up now or whether we can bring it up later in the meeting? Thank you.
Bit awkward. Fiona, what should we do?
An accurate reflection of what was said, I think, and then if it's anything other than that, we can deal with it later.
Yeah. So yes, Fiona, if you could just say that out loud.
I think we're just dealing with the minutes and if they're an accurate reflection of what was said. And otherwise, I think we're going to deal with the Hopkins home Holt site later in the proceedings.
That is assured because it's not on the minutes. It's not on the agenda, you see, and I've got some queries from the minutes, also looking at the accuracy as well. So that's why I asked the question. I will wait till later, that's fine. But if I don't ask, of course, I don't get clarification.
Right. Jeff's going to pop in here. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I can offer some comfort to Councillor Pearce. We will be covering aspects of the conduct of contributors to the last meeting later on this morning. We can find a slot in the agenda because we are addressing this as an issue for this committee moving forward. So if Councillor Pearce and others can bear with us, we will get to it later on in the meeting.
Right.
I mean, at this moment in time, it's a question of are the records or the minutes an accurate record of what was said at the last meetings. That's the item we're currently considering.
that's just-
I mean, there's no agenda item to specifically discuss the Holt application on today's agenda. If it's considered to be a matter that requires being considered an urgent item, but it hasn't been raised as a matter that this committee needs to discuss today, it will likely to come back to a future committee. It's not on the list to be debated today as a decision. Obviously, we can take that item later in the agenda if members felt that was something we needed to give them some advice about. But so it's not on the agenda for discussion today, but happy to have a chat if that's necessary, if that's required.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Jeff, Madam Chairman, I do think it's of importance to be discussed today on certain aspects because I've got written print here, which I'm very angry with. And I do think the brevity of the situation at the last meeting, chaired very well by Councillor Heinrich, it does need clarification, and there are several points that I do need urgent clarification. So if it's later today, that's fine. I'll leave it till there.
Right. So I think we'll bring that up as an item of urgent business. Just for the moment, can we please get approval for the minutes for the 23rd of February? Okay, approved and seconded. Okay. Did you get that, Laura? Yes, agreement. Well, I can't vote because I wasn't there. So items of urgent business. So therefore we will make a decision to review the matters that Councillor Pearce wants to bring up. I think we will do that at the end of today's business so that we can spend perhaps a little time on that one. Is that all right, Nigel?
As long as we're given an opportunity, because
Yes.
I do think talking to hearing other learned members, they may have one or two queries as well.
Yeah, okay, so there's an item of urgent business will come in after the agenda items. There were no objections received to applications. Order of business, we are changing the order of business because we do have some people here who some members of the public who wish to speak. So the order will now be, number 1 will be Northrops, number 2 will be Mumsley, then Sheringham, Tunstead and Hempstead. Have we altered now? There we go, first to Northrops, PF2.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, can I just, it's declarations of interest.
Oh, dear, I always forget that, don't I? I don't know why. Declarations of interest. Anybody got any declarations of interest on these? Angie?
Yeah, the applicant in Northrop's a personal friend. I shall be abstaining.
Right. Anybody anything else? Right. So we will now go to Northrops, PF 221708. And this is on page 59 of your agenda. And we have Officer Walker will be presenting. Alice, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members. This is application PF 221708, which is for Shrublands Farm camping site off Craft Lane in Northrops. The application is essentially a scaled down resubmission of PF 212263, which came before the committee in 2021 and seeks full planning permission for the siting of 2 self-contained timber glamping pods to be constructed on a rectangular parcel of land at Shrublands Farm to the south of Northrops village. This is the site location plan. The application site does not have planning permission and currently operates under a certified camping and caravanning license. This license is a permitted developments exemption, which allows land to be used for the purposes of camping for up to 28 consecutive days at any one time, for up to 10 tent pitches or 5 motorhomes, and 5 motorhomes. The glamping pods therefore do not qualify under this exemption, and their use is therefore required to be assessed against planning policy. Shows you the site plan. And then the next slide is an aerial view of the site. The pods are currently in use within the farm site, and this application is to relocate them to this site. The 2 glamping pods will be arranged informally, with each pod providing self-contained holiday accommodation, car parking at the front of each pod, and an area of decking. Indicative photos have been provided to show the pods. Access to the glamping pods will be via an existing forked access off Craft Lane, which is also used to access land to the northwest. That's the entrance to the forked entrance. It's the view of the actual site. And that's the land to the northwest. This is the lane that accesses, this is Craft Lane that accesses the site. And again, Craft Lane to the southeast. In terms of the key issues for consideration, the proposal is located in an area of designated countryside within the Norfolk Coast AONB, where policy EN1 of the core strategy recognises the impact of individual proposals and their cumulative impact on the AONB, stating that proposals which would be significantly detrimental to the special qualities of the AONB and their setting should not be permitted. Policies EC7 and EC10 deal specifically with controlling the location of new tourism development. EC7 gives specific reference to new build unserviced holiday accommodation in the countryside, which should be treated as permanent residential dwellings and should therefore not be permitted. Policy EC10 further states that new static caravan sites and woodland holiday accommodation, which would also cover glamping pods, will only be permitted in limited circumstances and not when they are located within sensitive landscape designations such as the AONB. Extensions to existing sites are tightly controlled and only when they demonstrate a high standard of design and have minimal adverse impacts on the surroundings. Given its certified status, officers have concluded that Shrublands Farm cannot be treated as an existing site, and the scheme should therefore be assessed as a new camping site under policy EC10 and is considered contrary to the aims of this policy. In terms of landscape impact, the proposed pods would occupy the site year-round, making them permanent structures. Landscape officers are of the opinion that whilst wider visual impact would be relatively contained within this woodland setting, permanent structures would be visible in winter months. This, together with increased human activity, light spill and vehicle movements that the development would generate, are not considered to conserve or enhance the valued features of the special qualities of the Norfolk Coast AONB, particularly the sense of remoteness and tranquility. In cases such as this, benefits of the proposal need to be balanced against the harms identified, which would result from new tourist accommodation being permitted in this sensitive designation. There's usually always some economic benefits associated with proposals of this nature. A farming report was submitted showing how the income from the camping business helps to support the farm. However, there's little detail as to how much the pods themselves generate. And given they're already in use on the farm, the application seeks to relocate them. Little weight can be afforded to this benefit. We've also received an objection from highways. Highways officers consider that the traffic impact of the 28-day certified camping site does not provide an adequate fallback position to justify all year round glamping pods, which would intensify highway movements. They consider the road serving the site, Craft Lane, to be inadequate due to restricted width, lack of passing provision, restricted visibility and lack of pedestrian facilities. The proposal, if permitted, is therefore considered to give rise to detrimental highway safety and is therefore contrary to policy CT5 and highways officers' recommended refusal. At the time, local planning authority have not received the GRAM's payment, and therefore this application also fails to demonstrate the proposal will not result in adverse effects on European sites, and the proposal is currently contrary to requirements of policies SS4 and EN9 of the adopted core strategy. In summary, we are recommending refusal of the application as the proposal is considered contrary to policies EN1, EN2, EC7, EC10, CT5, SS4 and EN9 of the adopted core strategy. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Alice. I now go to Mr. Mackay from the parish, Northrops Parish. Is he here? Would you like to come up? Is it Mr. McKay or Mr. Mackay? Oh, I got it right. You'll have 3 minutes from when you start speaking, and then the famous, well, it's not the egg timer now, it's a proper proper timer will indicate when you should cease.
Right, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'm here today just to let you know that Northrops Parish Council not only supported this application, but wish to fully support it. The benefits to the village are both economic and perhaps on some safety grounds. We've got the village pub, and in our experience, people don't go on holiday to these type of units to cook. So there's bound to be a benefit to the pub there. We've got local jobs would be created. These things would have to be cleaned, maintained, etc. Perhaps the biggest benefit would be the proposed footpath by the side of Craft Lane, leading from the village itself to the site. We have allotments just beyond the site, and this would enable our residents to safely walk down there rather than drive to the allotments. In our experience as well, people come and stay at this site. They tend not to drive about all over the place. They use the Paston Way, they walk to Overstrand, they walk to the village pub. And all we could see basically was benefits for everybody. So I'd like you, please, if you could, to take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. I'd like to return to your seat. I have no objecting speakers, but I do have a supporter, Mr. Rook, who's the planning agent. Same applies, Mr. Rook, 3 minutes from the time you start. I'm sure you're used to this. So.
Thank you. Yes, Matthew Rook from Brown & Co, speaking on behalf of the applicants. The site has been in continuous use as a caravan and campsite for approximately 30 years, and there is a camping and caravan licence in place which permits 5 camper vans or mobile homes and up to 10 tents across the combined site. This is for 12 months of the year, 12 months, not the 28 days as you've heard. This is a material consideration which we believe is this case. The District Council did not raise an objection to the camping licence when it was originally applied for in 1982. And as you've heard, the proposed 2 pods are being brought from another site elsewhere on the applicant's farm. It's intended that the proposed pods will be closed from the end of October to the start of March in each year. The proposed site is a secluded glade surrounded by rising land with mature trees to the north and a woodland to the east and the south. The pods are set back from the road, as you saw from the photographs. They'll be at the right at the back of that site. And we're proposing to plant new native hedgerows between the pods and the road itself to further screen them from Craft Lane. Although the site is with an AONB, the proposals in our view would not cause significant harm due to it being the existing significant screening around the site. The reduced site, if you notice on the plans, the site itself is at a much lower level than the higher land around it. And that reduced topography then means that the pods themselves are much lower onto the site. The design of the pods will further shield them from views into the site. As you've heard, the Parish Council fully support the proposals, as does your district environmental growth team. The Norfolk Coast Partnership neither object or support to the proposals, and no residents have objected. Councillor Angie Fitch-Tillett will support the application, and her reasons are within your report. As you've heard, landscape officers have objected. However, this appears to be based either on something that is unlikely to occur on the adjacent field or a perceived impact of the pods themselves. We would reiterate that any harm caused would be substantially less than the camper vans or the mobile homes that are permitted to use this part of the site. There'd be less disturbance and light pollution due to less camper vans making regular trips. There'll be no external lighting as the pods themselves don't have any lighting on them. Design is in keeping with the character of the surrounding area and would be less harmful and more in keeping with the area than the camper vans that the licence permits. The Highway Authority has objected, although it's noted, and you'll see within your report, that they have based their comments on the previous application for 4 pods. And they also refer to an appeal decision from 1992, which was for 5 holiday lodges. It's important to note, therefore, that the current proposal will reasonably generate as much as 50% less traffic than those previous cases due to the reduced number of pods. You've heard about the footpath.
I'm sorry, you've had your 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. It's gone quick.
Well, there you are. It always goes quick when you don't want it to, doesn't it, time? If you'd like to sit down, please.
Okay. Turn on.
Now I now go to local member, Councillor Kershaw.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman, and good morning, everybody. I'd like to put your attention, please, to page 60, where are my reasons for supporting this application. In particular, with the Norfolk Coast Partnership, and it was discussed only last week, one of our policies is to entice tourism away from the hotspots, which I believe are now, they're called something else. But this complies with this. This is coming away from the Chromers, from the Holcomns, and the ones that are causing us quite a lot of difficulty within the AONB. Any potential light pollution obviously is going to be controlled. Now I want to talk about Craft Lane. This is actually serviced by the R bus, which is a sort of minibus service that runs between North Walsham and Cromer. This goes down Craft Lane. So really, if highways allow a bus to travel down that road 3 or 4 times a day, both ways, I'm sure they would not have allowed that if the road was unsuitable. Added to which, as is mentioned by the applicant's agent, there will be a footpath between the camping site, behind the former social housing in Craft Lane, further on to join to the paved area of the village centre. Now that's not just a benefit, as we've heard from the parish council chairman, to the allotment holders, but it's also a benefit to those who live in those half a dozen houses in Craft Lane who currently cannot walk on a paved area. So this is a huge benefit, and the land is within the ownership of the applicant. Now, going on to the Norfolk Coast Partnership, as you see on page 62, they neither object, but they don't actually support it either. However, they're saying it is difficult to object, giving the precedent of other development on the site in landscape terms. And looking at the proposal as it stands, I don't believe there will be a significant impact on the AONB. The buildings are relatively modest and screened. And I would also like to make a comment about light, because they are very sensitive about light in Northrops. They have their own parish dark skies policy, and therefore the applicant is listening to that and is not going to produce any more additional light in the AONB. And finally, Madam Chairman, I would just like to remind members that only last month they approved additional camping pitches in the West Runton area of outstanding natural beauty. I believe that that is setting a precedent. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Obviously, I support the application.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Kershaw. Yeah, Councillor Lyons. Yes, Councillor. Officer, I just.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure members were clear on what's being proposed as part of the application, because I wouldn't want you to attribute weight to something that actually could not be or isn't part of the proposal. So we've heard mention already of a pathway linking the site to the rest of the village. Now, there's nothing in the application that's proposing that path as part of this scheme. So we can't attribute weight to something that's not part of this application. Now, if the applicant wants to include that, then by all means, but we need to have amended plans and have that secured as part of any decision when members minded to approve. Now, in terms of the use, the agents referred to a 12-month caravan use on the site. Now, that's not our understanding of the situation. There's permitted development and certificates that allow you to use the site for 28 days, but we have no evidence that this is a 12-month all year round use that's permissible on the site. But that's quite important when weighing the highway impacts. And it's also important in terms of, we wouldn't want to consider there to be no additional movements on top of what, because obviously going from 28 days to 365 days is quite a significant increase in traffic movements potential on that site. So just need to bear that in mind. And just picking up on Councillor Fitzgerald's point about the decision at West Runton, that wasn't actually adding any net increase in units on the site. That was amending and hard surfacing some of the pictures on that site. So it's not quite a straight comparator between the two. I just wanted to make sure members were clear when coming to your judgments. Thank you.
Thank you. I now go to members. Councillor Kershaw. Anybody else want to speak? Councillor Heinrich. Councillor Toy. I'm just calling it out now so we know. Councillor Brown. Nothing from this side. You wait. Okay. Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Chair. Jeff, thanks for the clarity, or well, not clarity. I think now I'm in a position, if this is a site that's open all year round, it weighs one way, and if it's not, it weighs the other way. So I'd like to absolutely know what that situation is. I think the applicant has said that the pod would only be open, well, they would close the end of October and open the end of March again. So they're not all year round. And I gather that the pods are already on this site in a different location. So I can't see where a highway objection would weigh heavily if the pods are already on that site. Also, I'd rather have a car driving down to visit a pod than something towing a caravan or a motorhome. And if there are coaches going down this road, as Councillor Fisher said, I can't see the harm in highways, and it seemed to be a pretty shallow defence from highways. From an economic point of view, I do support it. I think we need to support the farmers. I've said this many times in this chamber that farmers need help, and diversification is a good thing away from the hotspots, which I also agree with. But unless we have clarity today on whether this site is a 52-week-a-year site, and the footpath is an issue, I would actually say I would want to defer this application for clarity, because I don't think we're in a position to make a sensible decision. Thank you.
I can see an arm waving at me from the corner. Could you just tell me who you are? Well, then we have a problem.
The issue we have as officers is, and advising you as committee, is understanding what is the fallback position, and that's the crux of the issue. What's the fallback position in planning terms? We have no evidence presented to the officers or as part of this application to say this has a full 365. With respect, I'm still speaking.
It's been open 365 days ever since it's been open. Not 28 days, 365 days. That's it. That's fallback.
Excuse me. I did let you speak, although you hadn't asked to speak. The problem is here we've got to sort this out from a legal point of view. So,
I mean, my advice would be to defer this item so we can actually properly consider that, because I wouldn't want members to make a decision that's based on information that's incorrect. So
a deferral has been proposed by Councillor Kershaw. Anybody seconding this, please? Councillor Brown. Are we going to go with a recorded vote or just do hands up, Laura? I think we'll just do hands up for this one, I think, really. This is to defer PF 221708 so that we can legally confirm the running times for the site from 28 days. 365 will be the one for camping and caravan site, I would think, but I may be muddying the water here. So a deferral. Would you please put your hands up to defer this application for consideration at a later date. That's unanimous. Oh, one, sorry, no, one abstention. Thank you. So we'll come back to that one if you'd like to have a discussion with our team later on, okay?
Sorry. Officer Fredericks has been contacted. I know she is on her way. It's just the reordering of the agenda possibly has impacted the timing she would be here.
Right, Sheringham, PF 221660. And we have Officer Barrow present.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors. Yes, this is application PF 221660. And it is for a 4-storey 37-suite apartment hotel on land adjacent to the Reef Leisure Centre in Sheringham. You'll notice the location plan here, just showing sort of the site that I imagine members of this committee are now quite familiar with. And it's just to the east there between the Reef Leisure Centre and the industrial land to the west edge of Sheringham, out on the A149. There is an example from Street View. You'll notice the golf course and the Norfolk Coast AONB to the north, which is an important site constraint, as has been the case with all developments that have taken place up in this location. The proposed site plan here demonstrating the car park spaces that you'll see. There are 9 EV car parking spaces with electric vehicle charging, 2 of which are also disability accessible, as well as cycle parking and motorcycle parking. You'll also notice a small solar array to the roof on the southern part of the building, as well as a bin collection point there as well. The car park in particular is accessed from the southwest corner, which connects into the existing Reef car park and the new access approved and used as part of the Reef Leisure Centre. The proposed ground floor plan here, you'll notice obviously the mix of units that is available on the part of the first part of the report. There's 10 one-bed studios, 18 one-bedroom suites, 6 two-bedroom suites, and 3 accessible suites as well. The first floor plan there as well. The second floor plan. And the third floor plan again with the solar array on the roof to the south side. So just moving into the elevations, you'll notice some of the Art Deco styling, particularly with some of the font that you'll see from the Apartel style lettering. The materials palette scale is deliberately chosen so as to match the reef, and it ties into quite a cohesive overall development. The north elevation to the top there is the one that you will see from the A149 as you travel across the north of the site. The west is a courtyard sort of elevation, so it will appear slightly warped there in 2D form, but that would be what you would see if you were between the reef itself and this development. And there is the north courtyard elevation, if you were within that courtyard. The south courtyard elevation. And then the south and east elevations. So the east elevation will be more largely screened by the existing industrial units that are to the east of the site, and the south elevation will be largely viewable from the car park itself and Sheringham Football Club, as well as the residential properties further to the south. So there is quite an extensive landscaping scheme as well, including soft landscaping to the front, and hard and soft landscaping throughout, as well as some planting to prohibit some climbing as well to the southwest corner of the development. So moving through the sort of context of the site, this is walking along the A149 just in front of the Reef Leisure Centre, heading eastbound, and this is sort of demonstrating how the development would come into view as you travelled along the A149. That's the current site frontage at the moment. You'll notice Sheringham Football Club and residential properties to the rear, the car park to the Reef on the right hand side, and industrial properties to the left. And then from the east of the site, you'll obviously notice on the left-hand photo that the development would sit in front of the Reef there and largely screen that. And you've got the industrial land just to the frontage here. Again, from the courtyard, this is where you would see that courtyard and the main reception and lobby area for the building. So from the south boundary of the site, you can see the approximate point of the new access, and again, further indication of the current state of the site as well on the right photo. And then photo taken from the right-hand side, you can see where I've taken that photo across from the south side of Sheringham Football Club, the residential properties there. The Reef and the hotel itself are on a slightly lower land level, so you'll notice that they don't stick up as quite as high as one might expect, and do sit down lower than the football pitch itself. So the key provisions of development there are a 3- and 4-storey in height structure. The 4-storey element is to the frontage, and the 3-storey is more towards the south. You'll see the mix of units there as well, with the 49 total car parking spaces, including motorcycle and bicycle parking provision as well. The recommendation is for delegated approval of the application, we are asking to delegate approval of the application to the Assistant Director. It's worth noting that point 2 on the slide there has been resolved. The GRAMS tariff has been paid. So it is recommended that we are delegating approval just subject to point 1 there, which is the surface water drainage matters needing resolution. A variety of conditions are also recommended that we would be looking to attach and address the more exact wording of. It would be assumed that there would be surface water drainage conditions as well, once that issue is finally resolved. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. First, I must apologise. I'm speaking as part of the Sheringham local member team because Councillor Hynek is at work today at Woodfields School. As a local member, this is a difficult decision to make. And it's very easy, I think, to say that, well, it's a hotel, it will benefit the local economy. However, there are many concerns in the town that this may have the opposite effect. Further, that due to the shortage of land in Sheringham, with half of the hinterland sea and a good third the North Norfolk Ridge, it should be asked, is this the best use of the land, bringing the greatest benefit to our local economy? Expansion of the nearby industrial units for small business is desperately needed, and this would not only help the many small home-based businesses, but provide the much needed opportunities for expansion and growth. This would have been This would have potentially brought more employment and developed a broader employment base, bringing greater resilience for our community. Obviously, housing is a huge issue, and an assisted living complex similar to Meadowview at Fakenham would have brought a synergy with the new residential home being built at Westwood, adjacent to the site, an opportunity for a circular economy and very much more employment opportunities than the apartment hotel proposed. Given that this is seen by many as a complete change in the town's characteristic tourist accommodation, there are significant numbers with both misgivings about this application, in principle as an apartment hotel, but also as a missed opportunity for the town's economy. I know there are also concerns as how to the ownership model of this apartment hotel will operate. Looking at the detail of the application, concerns have been expressed about the density of the development on this site, levered in between the reef and the industrial units. Clever design of the reef has ensured it nettles into the site, and views from the AONB up on the coastal path north are not hugely impacted as a result. This new block, it is felt within town, will be more imposing, and the increased density lose the Sheringham characteristic of a haven nestled into the dip betwixt sea and pine. From the west, it will also change the entrance to the new town, the reef blocking only a narrow view of the town at the front of the site. And you can see from the western proposed elevation, this will extend beyond the reef southwards with a very square and contrasting larger construction. The northern elevation of the courtyard seems the most block-like as well, and seems to lack design quality. Landscape plan is disappointing, many feel. Although extensive hedging is being used, this I believe is an easy option and shows little thought as how to immerse this large construction between the two neighbouring sections of our AONB. Drainage, there are already concerns with pluvial drainage, and significant flooding has been experienced at the rears of this to the south, associated with changes linked to climate change. I think I would want to see a subsystem that looks to ensure flow continues or is absorbed and doesn't exacerbate issues further higher up in the town. The town council, when the reef and the enabling land were initially agreed, requested that a cycle path be included as part of the project from Holt Road to the reef and the recreation ground and the skate park. This did not get moved forward. Given the increased level of traffic from such a hotel, apartment hotel, albeit, can this be incorporated and included for discussion under 106 requirements? Further, there have been ongoing highway concerns in regard to speed along this section and increased traffic flow. If this development were to go ahead, it would be beneficial to move the 30 miles per hour zone further west beyond Cemetery Lane to provide safer access for pedestrians and vehicles. I'm not sure if this can also be considered at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whittington. I now go to the members who'd like to speak. Don't all rush. Councillor Brown, anybody else? Councillor Kershaw. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my first concern is about the design of this particular building in terms of its size and its simulated Art Deco style. I think I'm not sure where our design guide fits with this particular proposal. Given that it's in the AONB, I think the applicants could have submitted a much improved scheme. But my concern really is why the applicant hasn't provided proposals for a sustainable urban drainage system at this late stage. And if we can't agree provision for drainage, how it comes back to this committee. We would, I think, normally require a Section 106 agreement, which if it couldn't be agreed, would then bring it back to committee. So I'm just concerned about the mechanism for that. And I think it's, for me, it would justify a deferral of this application until we've considered that further, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, as portfolio
holder for sustainable growth, I see this as a great benefit to Sheringham, and I actually think that the site is well suited for a hotel. I listened to what Councillor Withington's had to say, but I have to say that on the notes on the application to date, there have been no objections cited, so that came as quite a surprise. I personally don't find the hotel objectionable, and I think it sits quite well within the reef. It's the same sort of height, it doesn't go further back, and it's good to see a piece of brown land being developed. I think there is a need for accommodation in Sheringham. We've seen places like the Burlington Hotel cease to be a hotel, and certainly from an economic point of view, I'm fully supportive of this. I'm happy to propose acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I note that this is a brownfield site too, and it's crying out for development. The design concerns that have been raised by Councillor Brown, I fail to agree with, to be honest with you. This application site sits between the reef and an industrial estate and a football pitch behind. It's hard to see what could fit into that environment, to be honest. And I think they've made quite a good effort to make the building look attractive, although taste is subjective. I'm very aware of that. I'm pleased to see, as portfolio holder for climate change, I'm pleased to see that they've considered EVCP and some solar. It amazes me that companies with the price of energy these days don't want to maximise on their PV to cut their own running costs going forward. So I would have liked to have seen some more. I also note that they're saying that they exceed the minimum energy performance standards, building standards in their report, but they don't prove it. I would have liked to see in the list of submitted documents an energy efficiency report. I don't think that's unreasonable for property of this size. And I'm assuming that the heating will be by gas, but I don't know because they haven't done an energy efficiency report. So I'm happy to, actually, having said all that, I'm happy to delegate authority to officers to bring this case forward, and I'll second it if need be. But I would like to see an energy efficiency report that actually demonstrates what they're saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Is there such a thing?
It's not with this application. I mean, we are, it's not for today, but we are looking at our local validation list, and a part of that, we're looking at the suite of documents that we require applicants to submit with a proposal. At the minute, our policy EN6 is the sort of the key policy lever. Obviously, things will change in the future with a new local plan, but we can make sure that in that local list that we get all that sort of information, so people can demonstrate how proposals are responding positively to a climate emergency, because that's a key part of what our job is as a planning service, to enable developments to respond positively. So it's not with this application. We will obviously have conditions that deliver the EN6 policy requirements. We are on our own site next door looking at car park solar. So there could be opportunities in the future for the hotel development to do something similar, although it's not part of this application. It wouldn't necessarily prevent that from being considered in the future. But so they've demonstrated compliance with our policy, current policy. But yeah, I agree. Most developers could do more if they wanted to, but it's kind of holding them to account under current policy. That's what this current proposal does, and they've demonstrated compliance with that.
Madam Chair, I think excuse me, I think I'll withdraw my second to this particular application, because in the absence of the data that's saying that they're going to meet building regulations, there's no calculations, there's no data whatsoever other than a single line in their accompanying documents. It's actually in their design and standards. What's it called? Design and access statement is the only place where they mention energy And I take on board what you're saying, Jeff, but I think, you know, having had the IPCC's report this week, I'm sensitized now to this. And if this council can't act quick enough on this, it's actually shocking to me that we're allowing, you know, 4-story buildings to go ahead without any evidence of how much energy they're going to use. I'm sorry, but
That's all right.
Just obviously the recommendation is one of delegated authority, and we're seeking to resolve the flood risk concerns of the lead local flood authority. I mean, it's up to the committee whether they wanted to also delegate a resolution of that point of providing the information that you're requiring about confirming full compliance with our policies. We can obviously make sure that that's evidence, because we need to make sure it's evidence to confirm it can be delivered in terms of our policies. So by all means, we can add that to the list of delegated approval if that helps assuage concerns.
I think Nigel has a very pertinent point here about this climate change. How people are able to demonstrate that they are complying with new policies. I mean, we have to understand that we're still working under the local plan as it exists. We haven't moved forward, but not quite yet. But this we do need to be aware that energy use is a tremendous problem and needs to be properly examined. I then have Councillor Heinrich and then Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I've one or two concerns. Design, well, it's a modern take on Art Deco, that's how I would describe it. It has some characteristics, and I think the elevations that are going to be most visible, I don't have too much trouble with. The others. In terms of what it's providing, I think the tourist requirement these days is much more for self-contained accommodation rather than traditional hotel, which tend to be not always of the highest standard, often cramped and very expensive. This potentially offers the opportunity to bring in a wider range of tourists who want self-contained. Though that does give some concerns over how this building is managed and how we ensure that the 90-day restriction can be ensured. I mean, if these apartments are going to be owned by multiple owners, not necessarily in the area, but potentially not even in the country, how do we have control over how these apartments are used? That's before we even think of what the Home Office might want to do. So concerns there. I share the concerns about the drainage, and I want assurances that that can be dealt with under the delegated matters, or I could fully support this in its present form. There is also the other issue of how carbon neutral the building actually will be. You know, I would like to have seen far more solar PV on those roofs, and consideration to the car park and having solar PV as well. So it's a work in progress to me, and we've already had the proposal to defer, and I'm tempted to second that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I think we just need to point out that these aren't timeshares. It has a slight hint of a timeshare. These are part of hotels. They're built by the company, or this will be built by this company that's stated at the beginning of the agenda item. Then they sell off the apartment separately to individuals, and then those individuals can ask the main body that built the hotel to let their apartments at such times that they don't wish to use it. So this is the one problem that Councillor Heinrich raised, that if there is a problem with occupancy above the 90 days, is it? 90 days. Yeah, just a minute. I think that's one of the problems that we would have at that particular point in time. Jeff is going to leap in now and rephrase my garbled speech.
I would never dream of doing that. I mean, apart hotels aren't a novel concept. They've been around for quite a number of years. There's quite a number of examples across the country. So we're not dealing with something completely new here. The building itself would be under a hotel use classification. So it's a C1 hotel use of the site. The points that you're making about financing. I mean, we don't necessarily get involved in financing as a planning committee decision. But clearly, some hotel providers are finding it very difficult in the market at the moment. There's not many new hotels being built across the country. And the only ones that seem to be getting built are schemes like this, where they're sort of de-risking the construction costs through people being able to buy into and buy either a single room or a number of rooms as part of as an investment opportunity. We would, if we were minded to grant permission, we would restrict it to a C1 use. We would restrict it so it's not someone's sole or main residence, so someone can't live in there all year round. There's talk of 90 days. Actually, I think probably 30 days continuous occupation is more an accurate reflection of a condition that we should be imposing. So people can't stay in there for longer than 30 days at a time, and keeping a register of lettings of who's going into that building. We do have a sort of enhanced enforcement team now, so we've got officers that can go out and manage and check that compliance with conditions. So with those conditions in place, I don't think the use issue is quite the concern I think perhaps some members are raising. So with those in place, I think I'm happy to suggest that members agree with that.
Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm just going to concentrate on one point. In terms of design, that's subjective. Use of the site, we've got no one else who's brought anything up. We've got an application for the site as it is. But I think Councillor Lloyd makes the strongest point. The all-party parliamentary committee on climate change, I can't remember its proper title, but I read that report when it came out. And if you don't read that report, you need to. I know we have to have policies that we have to comply with, but there are serious issues here. And the fact that we haven't got a flood report where flooding is going to increase, rainwater is going to increase, where we don't have evidence, I sit either that I would not be able to support this in its current state, or at least would go with the deferment until we have evidence. We can't, I know our policies are running behind, we need to get ahead. So that's where I sit with this. And I think it's a point that needs to be made clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we do have another member here who's not a member of our committee, but she has asked if she can speak on this. Councillor Fredericks.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm portfolio holder for housing. And I was just wondering, I think Jeff or even Councillor Brown might be able to answer this. So there's a kind of element of residential here in the fact that people are allowed to live there on a period of time. Is there any S106 money that we could actually ask the developers to put forward? Because, you know, this development needs to give back to the community.
There are no Section 106 requirements for this proposal. It doesn't trigger any sort of clauses. If it were a residential scheme, then clearly it would trigger contributions for libraries and other sort of 106 contributions we would expect. But it's not. It's a hotel use, and it doesn't trigger our contributions. They're making a GI-RAMS tariff payment. Well, it does require a GI-RAMS tariff payment, which they've now paid. But that's being paid up front via the Section 111 process under the Local Government Act. So there's no direct 106 that we would be requiring for this site.
Anyway, go over the hands. For all those in favour.
So just to clarify, this is a recorded vote for the officer's recommendation, against the officer's recommendation, or to abstain. Councillor Brown,
Against.
Councillor Fisher,
Against.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett, Councillor Grove-Jones, Councillor Heinrich, Councillor Kershaw,
For.
Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Mancini-Boyle,
Against.
Councillor Pearce,
Against.
Councillor Taylor, Councillor Toy,
Against.
and Councillor Whittington.
Abstain.
So that is 3 votes for, 7 votes against, and 2 abstentions. The vote is lost.
Yes, I was just going to say, Madam Chair, to assist you, I propose deferral, so I maintain that.
And Councillor Heinrich seconding, this is a deferral to allow the problems or the questions that we have raised today to be brought back to officers and to the applicants for discussion. Right, if you could go through it again then please, Lauren.
Councillor Brown,
For.
Councillor Fisher,
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett, Councillor Grove-Jones,
Against.
Councillor Heinrich,
For.
Councillor Kershaw,
Against.
Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Mancini-Boyle,
Against.
Councillor Pearce,
Against.
Councillor Taylor, Councillor Toy,
For.
and Councillor Whittington.
Abstain.
So that is 6 votes for, 5 votes against, and 1 abstention. The vote is carried.
This is deferred. Thank you. Jeff, do you want to say something? Yes, we're having a day of this, aren't we? Never mind. Thank you for that. Now we now go to Munsley. Thank you. Oh dear. This is page 51. PF 221649, page 51, and we have Officer Atwell. Matthew.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Morning, councillors. This application is PF 221649. It's an application at All Saints Church on Crome Road at Munsley for the proposal of the removal of the existing chancel roof to be changed for solar slates. As you can see on the location plan, All Saints Church is located on the main coastal road from Munsley, next to Coronation. From the aerial views, the church is surrounded by the cemetery on 3 sides, with vehicular parking for the church and Coronation Hall to the east. This photo shows the main approach to the church. As shown, there is a red arrow above the chancel roof, which is the area which is due to be replaced. This is the rear view of Munsley Church. As you can see, it's got the same arrow above the chancel roof, which is being replaced. These just. This slide shows the views of Munsley Church as you're approaching out of Munsley Village. This is an example of the materials which are going to be on the northern roof slope. It's going to be a traditional Spanish slate tile on the northern elevation. This is the example that illustrates the finish and look of the PV solar slates. The grey in appearance and don't have the same glint and glare issues associated with traditional traditional PV panels. As shown here, the applicant provided the energy usage in their last full year, which was 2018, of 3,683 kilowatt hours. The proposed PV slate roof will generate 6,754 kilowatt hours. In addition, it is the church's intention to remove the current oil burning boiler and replace it with electric heating. As such, they'll be providing a net gain to the national grid of 2,315 kilowatt hours per year. So the main issues is the effect of the proposed development on the designated heritage asset, effect on the residential amenity, highways and biodiversity, and also coastal erosion. Officer's recommendation is to approve the scheme with standard conditions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Matthew. I don't have a town or parish speaker. I don't have an objector, but I do have a supporting speaker. Mr. White, if you'd like to come up, please. You will have 3 minutes and then the timer will tell him, it'll go off, I'll tell you when to stop.
Morning. This plan is, well, for Norfolk, it will be the only church in Norfolk to have solar slates. They will generate, as you see, the amount of electricity. We will be able to run our church completely and we'll be completely eco-friendly because we will be doing away with our boiler, which is an oil boiler which leaks. So if I needed to get rid of it, it would mean that we would have to have the shed that it is in completely demolished because the shed was built around the boiler. Many people have said, will it do this, will it do that? From what I can find out, the whole thing will make us totally self-sustainable. You know, and I can't see a reason why it wouldn't be a good thing for Munsley and for the church.
Thank you, Mr. White. Is that, I'd like to go and sit down then. And we have a local member, Councillor Fredericks, Wendy.
Thank you. I'm absolutely thrilled that this has come to a development committee. I am absolutely positive that this is a trailblazer for other churches. They'll see this as a really good example and a great example of common sense prevailing here. So I just want to thank the planning officer for all their investigations too. As Bob quite rightly said, their oil boiler and tank is leaking into the ground. It's going to cost a considerable amount of money to replace that and still be reliant on oil. What they're wanting to do now is very, very close to our hearts, and also the Bishop of Norwich's vision for all churches to be greener in the county. So I really applaud the church for doing this, and I applaud that it's recommended for approval. Thank you.
You wish to speak, Councillor Lloyd, and then Councillor Brown, and Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Oh my goodness, you're going to get the whole house here. Who was next? I think that was Heinrich. I did get your hand. Do you want to? Where do you want to? Well, yes, you're not blending in quite so much today, Gerard, because you're not. I'll save you to the end. Right, Councillor Lloyd.
Absolute no-brainer. This, you won't be surprised to hear me say that. These are actually going on to buildings across the country, including historic locations like Cambridge University buildings, which are, you know, I believe one of them's a UNESCO site. But so if they can happen in places like that, they can happen here. Most people wouldn't even notice this has had this changeover. And, you know, getting back to our policies, I understand why officers, the conservation officer had to reject this, because that's what his document in front of him tells him. Well, the document's wrong and it really needs addressing. It's another area that this council's lagging behind. This is a climate emergency and I'm happy to propose this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Nigel's proposed that. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think Councillor Lloyd has beaten me to it. I would be happy to second the proposal. This, like Councillor Lloyd says, is a no-brainer. You know, we've declared a climate change emergency. We need to look after the environment and to propose this and support it. For all it's worth, the only tinge of regret I have is that it's Spanish slate and not Welsh slate, but I understand the reasons for that. Having holidayed in both countries and enjoyed the experience, it's just a shame that one has to lose out. But I went to Munsley yesterday to look at the church. There's a slight patination in the roof colour as existing. This will be a greater contrast, but I don't think we can stand in the way of progress, and we need to support the church. And we need to support the fact that we've made this declaration in this council and send the right message out to the public. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Like Councillor Brown, I do rather regret the loss of the pantiles, as I call them. But however, other than that, it's a real win-win and I would thoroughly support it.
Thank you, Councillor Heinrich.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, as others have said, this will really make a difference in terms of increased use of solar. The fact that it changes a building of some historic importance, I agree, it's great. It's great too. But it is an Edwardian church, basically. It's a minor change, and as it says in the report, it could well have been Welsh slate used when it was built. They just happened to use tile instead. Minor change in appearance, but otherwise an excellent scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Withington.
I'm just going to add, I agree with all the points that have been said so far, but I'm just going to add, I think as a council who's running the CTAP project, I think this is a good example how looking at transition and adaptation is more than just moving homes back and etc. It's about us looking at the buildings that we have and making sure that we're fit for the future. So I wholeheartedly agree with this.
Thank you. Councillor Mancini-Owen. They are finished on a flourish, Gerard.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Honestly, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, as parish councillors, I'm sure a lot of us are inspired by this. Quite frankly, how on earth did you get the funding for it? I'd like to know that. But thank God you didn't go for a gas boiler, a dinosaur gas boiler. So anything you can do to enhance your emissions is fantastic. And I think it should be rolled out. Your model should be rolled out to all parish councillors, so they can see how to do it. Because I'm amazed you've got the funding and even got your roof done. Well done.
Yes, thank you. And I understand from conversations with Councillor Fredericks prior to this meeting, little time ago last week, that this will mean that the church is much more amenable for community use. They have a very active lunch club there, and the various the church rooms, etc., are overflowing. So this will allow the church itself to be used as the overflow for the lunch club. So we now have, anybody else wish to speak before I go to? No. We have a proposer from Councillor Lloyd and a seconder, Councillor Brown, to approve the recommendation as stated on page 57. And we now go to the vote. Lauren.
Councillor Brown. Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Kershaw.
For.
Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
For.
Councillor Pearce. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Toy.
For.
And Councillor Whittington. For. That is unanimous, 12 votes for.
That is approved. Well done. Now we go to Tunstead. We're going to have a swap over again. More solar panels. Well, actually, that's good, isn't it? Just going to find where I am in the program. Oh, I've lost the program too. Page 39. Hang around half an hour, I'm there. This is Tunstead PF 223026. Installation of ground mounted solar PV array. And the officer is Officer Mark Brands. Mark.
Morning, members. Thank you. Just to provide a quick update, since the report was published in the agenda, we have received a landscape implementation and management plan. They're looking to address the requirement condition 4. There's no other updates to inform you of since the report was published. So the application is at Church Farm, Church Road at Tunstead. Proposal was for the installation of a ground-mounted solar PV array, 1083 kWp, consisting of 1900 panels and associated infrastructure. And this is the site location plan. And as you can see on the aerial, it's quite extensive polytunnels, particularly to the north, as part of Place UK, which is a large grower of soft fruits. And this is a wider context plan, so it's quite well distanced from the nearby villages, but you can see Tunstead, which is to the west, and Ashmanor to the south, is also quite well distanced away from the public rights of way network. So this is the proposed site plan showing the proposed array comprising 14 rows with inter-row spacing and associated cabling. There'll be it also shows the extent of the additional hedgerow planting, which is the dark green, which is the north, east and south, and sort of meadow grass mix that will be planted under the solar panels. So this is a cross section and elevation of the panels. So as I say, each of the frame will be 2 rows deep of the panels. And the next slide shows the front and rear elevations of the rows. And the next slide shows the associated infrastructure. So that includes the perimeter fencing, CCTV towers, which will be in the 4 corners, and the distribution cabinets. So these show some of the photos around of the site, particularly from the nearest road, which is the nearest sort of public area. So that shows it's quite a contained site, so it's quite characteristic country lane, hedgerows and trees. And you can see some polytunnels through that. And the next slide shows shows sort of further away, but you can see obviously you've got the trees as well. So it's quite a contained site which isn't visible from the wider visual landscape around the countryside. These are a couple of the photos taken from within the site itself, so viewing eastwards and northeast. So the hedgerow on the south will be kept, and the existing trees to the east will also be retained, and the existing polytunnels there will be cleared to make way for the solar panels. And this is just another view towards the northwest, and you can see some of the larger buildings associated with the enterprise, with more of the built form to the northwest, so it's quite limited views and quite contained nature. So these are the main issues. So the principle is considered acceptable in the local plan and national planning policy framework, which seeks to support renewable energy development. Site is contained and will not impact the surrounding landscape. There's biodiversity enhancements with a hedgerow and meadow grass planting, and I'd say there's no residential amenity within the immediate vicinity that will be impacted. So the recommendation is to approve subject to the following conditions. Thank you.
Now I have no town or parish speaker, no objector, no supporter. Local member Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Technically it's Nigel's, but I do know the area, so but I'm happy to take it on.
Thank you.
First of all, I've never seen such a clean sheet. Tunstall Council support, highways, no objection, landscaping, fine, subject to landscape environment, fine, environment development, fine. Why wouldn't it be? It's absolutely brilliant. This is the future we're now looking at, and I'm glad to see that we're seeing far more of these coming through. So I'm really pleased with this because it's a no-brainer. The carbon footprint is changing all over the place. I would like to add one point actually. As we're seeing a lot more of these coming through, it's because the threshold of 250 kilowatts triggers an automatic application to committee. Can this threshold not be raised so it doesn't have to keep coming through? As we're seeing more and more of these, if the threshold was over 1,000, then it wouldn't come through to committee because it's a no-brainer, this one. And we've got another one coming along later on. So I'd like to ask that question, but I'm totally in support of this, and I'd like to propose it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Jeff, do you want to come in on that one?
I was going to raise it at the end actually, but we are reviewing the local basically the call-in requirements for application, and actually we had it set at this level because way back when members at that time wanted everything to come to committee that was solar, which seemed a bit bizarre, but we kind of agreed a threshold at 250 kilowatts. But I mean, if the mood music is let's raise that to a much higher threshold, or do we even need to bring solar to committee? I mean, also there may be cases where there's a lot of competing issues to raise, but perhaps those only should be brought to committee rather than every solar. So I'm happy if there's consensus among members to delegate more to your officers to be able to approve these sorts of schemes.
Thank you. Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I take absolutely no issue with what Councillor Massini-Ball said. Just for context, I'm very familiar with this site. This is a business that is one of our major employers in Norfolk, and it's had very tough times recently. They have suffered effects of Brexit and employment coming in, restriction on employment, followed by a lot of their employees coming from Ukraine. They've got through that. They've also suffered with issues with water abstraction. They've got one reservoir that they've built, and they've got planning in for a second one. And this is a company that doesn't want to give up. And we should be supporting this. They are very popular within Tunstall. And this actual site itself, they're removing polytunnels and putting solar panels in. So the actual damage, visual damage is actually lower than it was before. There is no damage, there's no harm. But it's, I think we should be looking more favourably on this sort of installation. It's all for the good. And this is a first-rate
company that needs to be supported. So I'm more than happy to second this application.
Are you proposing this? Gerald, sorry, Gerald. Yes, I know this site very well. It's only about a couple of 3 miles from me. And it is tucked really away. It really is. The whole thing is tucked away. Councillor Lloyd.
Yeah, I fully support this and happy to second it if I'm required. To answer Jeff's question, though, I think these should only come before this committee if the local member requests it to do so for particular issues or problems. The rest should just, you know, be assessed on their own merits by officers. But yeah, fully support, obviously.
Councillor Toy.
All been said, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I fully support has been said. Just on revising how we deal with these applications, I think there are a number of options to look at. I don't know what's in the National Planning Policy Framework. It wouldn't surprise me if there was very little in the framework about this, because it doesn't seem to be much brain power at government level being applied to it. So it's, yeah, it's a no-brainer for them in a different way. So yeah, we can obviously look at validation list requirements. We can look at a differential process for areas within the AONB, for example. We could look at almost making it permitted development outside the AONB and our validation list reflecting that. I'm not so sure calling in by the local member is perhaps the way to go on it. I think we need something which is a little bit more prescriptive across the district, really. But I don't know what officers think, but perhaps we should be looking into this as to how we want to give this more permitted development treatment than it currently gets for this type of application. But congratulations to the applicant for proposing what they want to do, and I fully support it.
Thank you. I think there were problems in the past with lighting as well. That was one of the things that came up. Jeff, do you want to say anything at this point?
I mean, we're not going to resolve the scheme of delegation today, but I would say it's already sort of on the radar to review. I mean, my personal view, it is my own personal view, is that we should be giving greater weight to those applicants that are responding positively to a climate emergency. So it's a material consideration that we should give positive weight to if they're evidencing that they are doing more than they can. It doesn't mean that in itself is a justification for allowing unsustainable development, but we need to have the scheme of delegation that kind of recognises those that people are trying to do an appropriate thing as part of their development. So yeah, happy to review that, and yeah, it'll no doubt come back to committee for final sign off in terms of the scheme of delegation anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is a no-brainer. One question that I'd like to be considered if we're going to look at the go ahead to getting these approved is the designs of these panels have changed over the last 10 to 15 years. Disposal is now much easier. And obviously the earlier panels do take more attention to dispose of. Can we have that information looked at as well for future so that if one of these does come forward, as it will, it's even easier to go through, because disposal of these panels once they're finished can always be a problem, especially if they're left as they can be just to rot. And at the same time, we've got to be careful of land pollution.
I think there is a condition on this one, isn't it? That says that, yeah, oh, okay. Right, anybody else wish to speak? No, well, we'll go to the vote. The proposer to accept the officer's recommendation as shown on page 47 is Councillor Mancini-Bowles, seconded by Councillor Kershaw. This is approval subject to conditions, and quite a lot of conditions actually set out below. And any other matter considered necessary by the Assistant Director of Planning. So can we have the roll call then, please?
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Grove-Jones.
4.
Councillor Heinrich.
4.
Councillor Kershaw.
4.
Councillor Lloyd.
4.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
4.
Councillor Pearce. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Toy.
4.
And Councillor Withington.
4.
That's unanimous, 12 votes for.
That's approval given then. Thank you. We now go to the last of our applications. This is Hempstead. And I'm not going to flick around again. It's 71. Thank you, Fiona. 71. The what? I've got it written down here. Look, it's been faster. So Hempstead PF 230198, installation of ground mounted solar panels. And the officer presenting is Isabel McManus. Welcome, Isabel, and welcome to all the first timers here from the planning team. It's great to see you all. Right, Isabel.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning, councillors. So I'm presenting this application PF 230198, which is for a solar array on agricultural land in Hempstead. As you can see from the location plan, the closest residential dwellings are situated to the southwest of the application site. Further details of the proposed location of the solar array can be seen on this site location plan. As shown on the aerial photos, the application site is bounded by mature trees and vegetation to the north, and a mature hedgerow runs to the west of the application site. As shown on the proposed site plan, there are 632 panels proposed across 2 rows to provide electricity for the farm complex. As shown on the proposed side elevation, the panels will protrude 3 meters above the ground level. I'm now just going to go through some site photos. So this is a view from the south looking north. It shows the proposed location of the solar array in relation to the existing hedgerow boundary to the west and the existing trees to the north. View 2 from the south. This shows the view from the south looking north, and I'm standing further up within the field. Again, showing the existing trees, hedgerow to the north and the hedgerow to the west. The view from the west looking east shows the existing trees and vegetation to the north. And this last photo is standing north of the applicant site on School Lane, and it shows the existing trees and vegetation. So the main issues for this application are the proposed development, is it acceptable in principle, the effect on the character and appearance of the surrounding landscape, the effect on the residential amenity, whether it would have an impact on highway safety, would it affect biodiversity and the loss of grade 2 agricultural land. And you will note from the officer report that we feel this proposal has an acceptable impact on the surrounding landscape, and the proposed development would have significant benefits in terms of renewable energy generation and carbon reduction in terms of climate change. We therefore recommend the application for approval subject to the below conditions.
We have no town parish speaker, no objectors, no supporters, and the local member is unable to be here because he's unwell. So we go straight to asking, does anybody want to speak on this particular one? Councillor Lloyd.
Yeah, nothing not to like about this one again, so I'll leave it there. I'm happy to propose this for acceptance. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Lloyd's proposing. Just a minute, So, a minute. Councillor Mancini Boyle, speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. If you actually took the extract from the previous application and put it on this one, it'd be exactly the same. So it's again, a no brainer. And just put a bit of context, my fellow councillor mentioned about getting rid of these solar panels. They have improved an awful lot since when they were first developed. I mean, they had silicons in them, they had acids in them. All of this is gone now, so they're very, very easy to get rid of, and they do have an anti-glare on the top of them, so there's no problem with them anymore. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Toy.
So I'm happy to second. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else wish to speak on this one? Right, so we have a proposal from Councillor Lloyd, seconded by Councillor Toy, to accept the recommendations as on page 75. Approval subject to the conditions as stated, and any other matter considered necessary by the Assistant Planning Director. Anything you want to add, Jeff? Nope, nothing to add. Should we go to the vote then, please? It's
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Councillor Grove-Jones.
4.
Councillor Heinrich.
4.
Councillor Kershaw.
4.
Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
4.
Councillor Pearce. Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Toy.
4.
And Councillor Whittington. 4. That's unanimous, 12 votes for.
That's approved, thank you. That means we finish the applications. Now, what do you want to do? Do some-
Right, thank you, Chair. So where we are, actually. My paper's in order.
Yeah, I know, page 77.
Okay, so I've attached again our performance up to for the month of February, so up to 28th of February this year. So we had 2 major decisions and 72 non-major decisions, and drum roll fanfare, please. All were approved within time or within an agreed extension of time. So
Well done.
2 lots of 100%. So yeah, that's obviously helping our performance figures, although bizarrely our 24-month average for majors has actually gone down, and that's because there would have been some major decisions approved 24 months ago that have dropped off the list. So it's kind of, yeah, giveth with one hand, taketh away with the other kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased with the performance. The team are working incredibly hard, and I know you'll continue to offer your sort of thanks and support for the hard work that the planning team are doing in keeping these decisions rolling out. So the numbers of applications are still getting quite a few cases in. So the caseloads are still quite high, but we are sort of working about managing them okay. So yeah, so things are moving along, sort of fairly good news, really. Obviously, lots of work that we're doing that will link to performance as part of the planning service improvement plan. So hopefully we can get these figures even higher in the future. And I think there's a lot of, I think we said before, there's a lot of schemes where we've asked for extensions of time. So we're trying to reduce our reliance on extensions of time and shorten the time frame it takes to make a planning decision, because that's one of the criticisms that planning teams often get, is that we just take too long. So if we can have a scheme of delegation that avoids the need to bring items to committee, that will help in that process as well. So yeah, so pretty good news on that. So if members have any questions before we move on to section 106, happy to take that.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, it's really basically to say thank you to our officers in the planning department for their dedication, all their hard work to achieve these figures, improved figures. And as portfolio holder, I'd just like to say that hopefully with better application of the new uniform system for officers, we can speed up the process even more moving forward. So
Yes.
all good, Madam Chair.
Yes, I echo this. I know that it's been difficult. We've had difficult times, haven't had full staffing. We've had the new IT coming in. Everything seems to have come at the same time. Also, with the working from home, people getting used to that and coming into work on reduced hours. So, no, well done, everybody.
The only thing constant in life these days seems to be change. So it's embracing change and kind of making it happen and work for the team, right?
Fiona, over to you, my love, for the 106, please.
Yes, in fact, there's 7, sorry, there's a typo there, there's
7 current section 106 obligations. I'm really hopeful that the Maltings one will be completed shortly. We are pushing the applicants on this a lot. I'm disappointed with progress on that. So I'm really hoping that I'll be able to report next month that the document is agreed. We've got one issue that's been outstanding for over a month now. That's just unacceptable. But other than that, yes, it's all progressing well.
Jeff,
Don't need to, but I mean, so applicants and officers have been working on conditions. There's been exchanges on those. I think it's the final death throes on the 106 obligation that hopefully we can get over that barrier and get those final points agreed, really. But yeah, I'm personally keen to get those moved on because they're my last two cases. So nice to have a caseload free. Really.
Yeah, they're just progressing. There's no hiccups on the others. Yeah, they're progressing quite well. So yeah.
Just to say that I don't know if you know, I've been banging on about 106 money since my hair was grey. Philip very kindly put me onto Hayley, who's now contacted me, and I'm having a conversation with her on Monday. Seems very positive because the first thing she said to me is, "How can I help?" Which I thought was brilliant. So definitely moving forward on this. It was really, really good. So I'd just like to thank Hayley for being so prompt and efficient. Thank you.
So we've got quite an extensive list of appeals that are sort of going through the motions at the moment. I wasn't sure whether Philip was going to be here for this case in terms of an update on Cly. We're still awaiting for the inspector's decision at Cly for the Arcadia cases. I think that's at the end of March, beginning of April, I think is the date that I've heard of. So we'll obviously keep you updated. I don't think we'll wait for a committee to update you in terms of where we are with that. I'm sure there'll be a lot of public interest in that case across the district. So we'll keep you appraised on that. We have had a couple of appeal decisions. So we've had yes, that is one of those. I'm just if my IT will let me.
Oh, I see.
So we've had, so just in terms of the cases we've had decisions on. So we've had a case that's part of a garden of 17 Buxton Close at East Runton. So that was an application for a bungalow in the garden of an existing property. The inspector has dismissed that appeal. So that's another case where the inspector's supporting our position. And as Councillor Brown said, we've had a case at Manor Farm Barnes as well, and that also was dismissed. So our sort of reasonable good record at appeal continues to back up our decisions that we're making. So I'm happy to take any other questions on particular cases that.
I noticed that Runton, the inspector allowed the appeal. This was we thought it was.
Yes, I did raise those in sort of orally last time. Yeah.
Right. Anybody else got anything to say? Nigel.
It's not on the list, but in the press this week, there was the mural taking up the side of a building in a conservation area in North Walsham. Widely reported in the EDP and in the North Norfolk News and on social media. I just wondered if you could update us with any status on that with regards to planning.
I've not been involved. I know I've heard murmurings in the office in the enforcement team about obviously that particular case. but I don't quite know what action is going to be taken, if any, on that. So I can ask the enforcement officer to provide local members an update. But then did Fiona?
Philip,
Philip, yeah, okay.
Philip, you wish to speak on this one?
Moving stealthily this morning, Chairman. Members, we do have an update in terms of the North Walsham mural. I can tell you that officers have visited the site, Chairman, and that the report was compiled for Tuesday's planning enforcement panel. There's a review of the mural. The consideration for the mural would fall under section 215 as being untidy land, or alternatively for it to be graffiti. The panel took a view that that was not the case, that this was not untidy land and that it was not graffiti. We've got some small issues to resolve with the building owner, which we'll be picking up and which we will confer directly with the building owner. It is an enforcement investigation, so that's probably as much as I can say publicly at the moment. And obviously, if the board member does want a specific update, we'll be very happy to give him that update. But we think that we're progressing well. And I think there was an overview corporately that we were pleased to see a successful local person being celebrated in North Walsham in a good and positive way. So the issue was for us to resolve that with the building owner, and I'll be pleased to speak directly with the ward member as and when required.
Thank you. Is that okay, Nigel?
Yeah,
Yes, I think if you.
For Lauren Hemp, it's just the location has upset many people in the town. There's been a lot of negative as well as positive responses on this, and so I think it's a balanced thing. But you know, quite frankly, if we allow people just to do this wherever they feel that they want to, it'll be absolute chaos. Some people are calling it graffiti, others are saying it's a good representation and supports Lauren Hemp, as she is a local star for us, and we're very proud of her. But perhaps there might have been better ways to.
You can't please all of the people all of the time. Same old adage, but it applies here. Now, thank you very much for that. That finishes our business, apart from the item of urgent business, which we will now bring forward, which is to reconsider the decisions or the what is it, Nigel? We're reconsidering what?
Well, I was wanting to have a look at what the situation is regarding the site in Holt, because I saw something in one of the local papers, and bearing in mind what was going through on our last committee meeting with the owner via Philip sitting at the back saying he prepared to negotiate over the his proposal to build no low cost or low income homes. I saw this in the paper that said a decision has been agreed that he will have no low cost homes on the site, Hopkins. I wonder where he got it, where the paper got it from, and if a decision has been made, should it not have come back to committee because it was a deferment? So I asked several questions, please.
Well, since the deferment last committee, there is no decision being made on this application. It's a matter that will come back before this committee if the applicant doesn't appeal non-determination based on the expiry of the proposal. As it stands, the extension of time of the application was agreed beyond the 3rd of March. It was till the 28th or the 31st of March. We've gone back to the applicant in the last couple of days and asked to extend that a further period till the end of April. Now we've had 2 further meetings with the applicant since the committee meeting to discuss the particular issues about delivering affordable housing on this site. So that's involved myself, the case officer, and housing colleagues. So we're trying to negotiate a successful way forward. But those discussions are still ongoing. So we're not at a position where we can bring this back to committee. So obviously I can't saying why the paper have said that in that particular case, but it's not correct that no decision has been reached. It's the decision that you as a I mean, that could just be restating what was in the officer report at last committee. Obviously, that's the position that we were suggesting at officer level, but it's a member decision to determine this application now. So it rests with you if the applicant allows you to make that decision.
But people have looked at that publicly and said, you know, I'm not going to repeat what they said about NNDC. The fact they thought a decision had been reached.
What was that application then?
Crab towers. I'll give it to Philip so that.
Right, Andrew, you want to say something?
Well, it clearly is an article not based on anything that this council has publicised or put out into the public domain. It's a difficult one because it's the old adage, isn't it? Don't read it, don't believe everything that you read in the press. And if Councillor Pearce is in a roundabout way asking the question, can we control that? The answer is no. We have a free press. We can make suggestions to the EDP, North Norfolk News and any other similar publication that perhaps they should send their reporters on a planning training course to better understand what the nature of decisions we make on this council. But as to how we can push back, maybe the head of communications can make a call to the relevant publication editor and make the point. But I've slightly misunderstood what Councillor Pearce was going to raise, because I thought it was about the way in which the developer engaged on this particular agenda item at the last meeting.
I was going to come to that. You've
in which case I'll let Councillor Pearce submit his view on that and then deal with it, because I will have some useful information to impart to him.
Philip, you want to come?
Chairman, Officers Act on members' instruction. I've been handed a copy of the article by a member of our committee. Under your discretion, Chairman, I will be pleased to refer the matter to our communications team. And I will ask the communications team to make contact under your due discretion, Chairman.
Yes, absolutely.
I would also add that as a matter of public record, we do have a public access system, which is clearly available. And should anybody wish to interrogate that, then they would see that no decision has been made on this case. I've given you my personal and professional indication, Chairman, that this matter will be returned to committee for your consideration. We crossed that issue when we spoke last time, Chairman. That remains the case, as Jeff has outlined.
Thank you, Officer Rowson. Now, did you wish to bring forward another motion?
Just a quickie, Madam Chairman. First of all, Andrew, nobody can control the press. We have a free press in this country, whether it's good or bad or indifferent. That wasn't the issue. The issue was, and I'm very pleased that Philip has enlightened us, is the fact that obviously locally, not only in Holt, but where we are, the provision of low-cost rented homes for our local people is a very hot topic and something that I've been very strong on all the time since I've been a councillor. And I'm very glad that no decision has been made. And I think also possibly that should be put into the paper as well, because I got quite a few phone calls when that was put into the press. And I decided to wait to committee because I thought this place was the right place to put it. Because I can ask you, Philip's come in and given an assurance, which is being recorded and put on YouTube for posterity. But also, I think, maybe before we close, that having some kind of contact with the applicant whilst we were discussing certainly changed a position from no homes to he will negotiate or they will negotiate. I don't like that very much, considering the fact that they said they agreed a certain number to obtain the plan permission in the first place. So let's see what we can do. and get as many as we can. But it was just a fact. I thought that the applicant's tenure changed as he was listening, or they were listening and watching the debate. I'm still very upset that they didn't turn in on the day, because I think they could have even had more resolution and understanding of how hot this topic is with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, as portfolio holder, I've asked for the manner in which the applicant engaged with the committee at the last committee meeting on that particular agenda item was conducted, and it's a challenge to the terms of reference for our committee. So I'm asking for consideration as to whether an applicant will be able to make representations during a meeting if they are attending it by email or making representations by email remotely. It seems to me that the case is quite strong for either they attend in person and give the respect to this authority and this committee that we are entitled to receive, either by attending in person or by attending on a link if it's permissible under the meeting rules that we have to abide by. So that review will be undertaken, and there'll be more to follow on that. But obviously I was not satisfied as portfolio holder on how that meeting was conducted. And I'd just like to say profuse thanks to Councillor Paul Heinrich for the manner in which he chaired that meeting. It was an extremely difficult meeting, and I think he chaired it extremely competently.
Yes, I managed to get out of that one, didn't I?
And very well done, Madam Chairman, too.
I did dodge a bullet. I must say, Councillor Kershaw wants to speak, but I must say it is showing respect to this committee and to our officers if a developer, and a large developer like Hopkins Homes, I would expect them to be here, or a representative to be here to support their application. It's disrespectful. I'm sorry, it's disrespectful not to put forward a representative, especially in such a situation where there was quite a bit of controversy. Yes, Andrew, Richard, sorry.
Andrew, if you like. I don't
Well,
mind.
it doesn't matter, does it?
I did make that point at the last meeting, that I was sad that they weren't here. And if we were a member who didn't attend, we wouldn't be allowed to email or contact another member of the committee or officer. So I think it's an underhand and shabby way to behave. And the sooner it's stopped, the better.
Thank you. Councillor Rouse, Officer Rouse would like to speak.
Don't bestow high office on me this
Yeah.
morning. I've only got so much time, Chairman. The position is this: as we stand currently, representations are made through the discretion of the chairman. This committee is proud. We accept representations and we try to be flexible, I believe, both officers and members, in receiving those representations. In reflection from the portfolio holder meeting early this week, I have spoken with the committee support team, and it is clear that we can refuse to accept written representations that are made after the commencement of the development committee meeting. That's exactly what happened in this case, and so we can strike a line through that as a matter of general practice going forward. We can publicise that issue on our web pages, and we can make a change as of now. What we do need to do is we need to review our representations in terms of public speaking and attendance at committee. Now, I understand, having spoken with our officers, that will be undertaken, and we will review that with the next administration going forward. And I reflect indeed with members' concern about an applicant not coming to a meeting and effectively lobbying extraneously. That was picked up with me and that particular applicant after the meeting, and the members' concerns about that issue were actually raised. So my expectation is, when this matter is represented, that the applicant may be then minded to return to committee.
as we said on the day, we can't make people come to committee. We can simply recommend that they do attend to articulate their case. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to bring? I think everybody felt that I listened online and I was amazed. And thank you also to Paul for taking that on, because that was a difficult situation to have to get through. You did it magnificently. Not as well as I would. Oh, no. You did it well. You did it well. Extremely well. Now we go on to number 15, the exclusion of press and public. Private business. I don't think there's any other urgent exempt business. So I announce this